There is a metal costing $2 at any hardware store in the world that kills E. coli, Salmonella, Vibrio cholerae, and Staphylococcus aureus in stored water overnight by releasing ions at concentrations measured in parts per billion, a concentration so small it is invisible, tasteless, and undetectable without laboratory equipment, yet lethal to every waterborne bacterial pathogen on the WHO's priority list. It has been doing this inside water storage vessels since before written language existed. The mechanism has a name, the oligodynamic effect, from the Greek for action of the few, and it was formally named and described by a Swiss botanist named Carl Wilhelm von Nageli in 1893. What von Nageli named, in 1893, the Indus Valley civilization had been using in copper storage vessels for over 3,000 years before his birth. What the Indus Valley knew empirically, modern microbiology has now documented with precision across dozens of peer-reviewed studies. And what modern microbiology documented, a $14 billion home filtration industry, has spent 60 years making sure you never thought to connect to the $2 copper coil sitting in the plumbing aisle 4 rows over from the branded filter replacements. They did not bury this because it failed. They buried it because it worked continuously, passively, and permanently without consuming anything, degrading anything, or requiring replacement of anything. You cannot sell a replacement cartridge for an element. You cannot attach a subscription to a metal that performs its disinfection function through electrochemical dissolution at the rate of a few atoms per hour. You cannot build a $14 billion cartridge replacement business on a process that operates without a filter housing, without electricity, without maintenance, and without any input beyond the water itself in a vessel that costs $2 and lasts until it is physically destroyed. The oligodynamic effect cannot be metered. Copper ion release cannot be invoiced. The electrochemical disinfection that happens overnight in a copper vessel cannot be patented because it is a property of an element, and elements belong to the periodic table, and the periodic table has never had a licensing department. The global home water filtration market was valued at $14.6 billion in 2023. Replacement filter elements, the consumables, not the units, account for over 40% of that revenue annually. A 2019 report by the World Health Organization on household water treatment and safe storage formally listed the copper vessel method as a documented traditional household water treatment practice with demonstrated antimicrobial efficacy, citing multiple controlled studies showing 99 to 99.9% reduction in indicator bacteria within 16 to 24 hours of storage contact time, not in a laboratory, in field conditions, in the homes of the populations who have been using the method continuously for 3 millennia. The WHO documented it, published it, filed it, and here's the detail embedded quietly inside the same WHO documentation. The report classifies copper vessel storage under traditional practices alongside boiling and solar disinfection, methods the agency acknowledges as effective and accessible, and notes that the practice is declining in communities with increasing access to commercially marketed filtration products. The practice that worked for 3,000 years is being replaced by a product. The WHO noticed. The filtration industry was grateful. That silence in every Western consumer water safety campaign that has never once mentioned the copper vessel is not an oversight in the literature. That silence is a distribution problem that the industry solved by capturing the conversation. I'm not going to tell you this is a new discovery. The Smith Papyrus, an Egyptian medical text dating to approximately 1600 BCE but believed to copy source material from 3000 BCE, references copper as a material for sterilizing water and treating wounds with a specificity that reads like protocol rather than tradition. The Karaka Samhita, one of the foundational texts of Ayurvedic medicine, compiled between 600 BCE and 200 CE, instructs that water stored overnight in a copper vessel, called tamra jal, water of copper, is both purified and therapeutically beneficial, and specifies copper as the correct material for water storage vessels in a way that distinguishes it deliberately from clay and wood. The armies of Alexander the Great carried copper and silver vessels for water storage on the Asian campaigns of 326 BCE, a logistical decision recorded by the campaign chronicler Arrian of Nicomedia that historians have noted corresponds to dramatically lower rates of waterborne illness in Alexander's forces relative to enemy armies drawing from the same water sources. The Roman municipal water system ran primarily through lead pipes, a catastrophic choice whose consequences played out across centuries of chronic poisoning. But the copper fittings, copper valves, and copper storage cisterns at the household level in Roman homes were providing oligodynamic disinfection benefit that Roman engineers recorded empirically without understanding the mechanism. Then, in 1893, Carl Wilhelm von Nageli placed bacterial cultures in contact with trace concentrations of metal ions in controlled conditions, and watched every bacterial culture die at copper concentrations below 1 part per million, and reported his findings with the precision of a man describing something that had been waiting to be described for 47 centuries. In 2012, a team at IIT Gandhinagar in India published a study in the Journal of Health, Population, and Nutrition, confirming that water stored in copper vessels for 16 hours showed complete elimination of Salmonella typhi, E. coli, and other pathogenic bacteria, with no recovery of viable organisms. Complete elimination, not reduction. Elimination. The study was 40 pages. It cited 22 prior studies. The mechanism was iron, and almost nobody built a product from it because a product was the wrong conclusion. The correct conclusion was that the product already existed and had existed for 3,000 years and was sitting in the hardware store plumbing aisle for $2. You've seen this your whole life and just never connected the dots. You've noticed that the water from a copper-bottomed pot tastes faintly different from water boiled in stainless steel, that slight mineral quality is dissolved copper ions at concentrations measured in parts per billion, the same ions that are dismantling bacterial cell walls in a storage vessel overnight. You've read about hospitals replacing plastic and stainless surfaces in high contact areas with copper hardware, door handles, bed rails, IV poles, because clinical studies showed 68% reductions in healthcare-acquired infections in rooms with copper surfaces versus rooms with standard materials. The same oligodynamic mechanism operating on contact surfaces instead of in water. You've seen old copper pennies turn green with patina and new copper pipes run clean water without biological fouling for decades, while plastic pipes in the same system accumulate biofilm. The patina is copper oxide. The fouling resistance is the oligodynamic effect, both of them the same electrochemical property of the same element. The metal that keeps hospital rooms clean keeps copper pipes biologically inert for 30 years and reduces healthcare-acquired infections by 68% in clinical settings is the metal in the $2 coil in the plumbing aisle. You were walking past the answer every time you walked into a hardware store. The hardware store just never told you what you were walking past. Here's what you need. I want to be honest with you about every number. Copper coil or copper pipe, sold as refrigerator waterline tubing, soft copper coil, or copper plumbing tube at any hardware store, home improvement center, or plumbing supply in the world. A 1/4-inch diameter by 10-foot coil of soft copper tubing runs between $1.80 and $2.50 at any Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, or regional hardware equivalent. This is your primary tool. 10 feet of 1/4-inch copper tubing provides approximately 93 square centimeters of contact surface area when coiled and submerged, sufficient oligodynamic surface area to treat 1 to 2 liters of water to near complete bacterial elimination in 16 hours of contact time in controlled studies. Alternatively, a pure copper water storage vessel, sold at Indian grocery stores and import shops as a copper lata or copper jug, costs between $2 and $5 and performs the same function with a larger contact surface area and therefore faster action. Either form works. The coil gives you flexibility of application. The vessel gives you a dedicated permanent storage tool. If you choose the coil, one additional item, a way to coil and secure the copper tubing into a form that fits inside your storage vessel without touching the vessel walls and blocking surface contact. Bend the tubing around any cylindrical form, a wide jar, a bottle, a thick dowel, into a tight spiral. It holds its shape when bent slowly. You do not need tools. Copper tubing at this diameter bends by hand, and the coiling takes 90 seconds. Clean food-grade storage container, any container you already own, a 1-liter wide-mouth mason jar, a food-grade plastic pitcher with a lid, a ceramic pot with a lid. The container is not the tool. The copper is the tool. The container holds the water while the copper works. That is genuinely it. $2 for the copper coil or vessel. Everything else you already own. Here's the one thing most people get wrong. They put the copper in the water and check it after 4 hours, and the water is still visibly unchanged, and they conclude nothing is happening. Nothing visible is happening. That is the point. The oligodynamic effect is submicroscopic. The ions releasing from the copper surface are invisible. The bacterial cell wall disruption they cause is invisible. The leakage of cellular contents, the inhibition of enzyme activity, the failure of bacterial replication, all of it happens at a scale far below anything your eye can detect. What you can detect is the result, and the result is not visible until you test the output and find that the pathogen load that entered the vessel 16 hours ago is gone. The failure mode is not the chemistry is consistent. The failure mode is surface fouling, a layer of mineral scale, organic film, or copper oxide forming on the copper surface and blocking ion release into the water. A fouled copper surface is an insulated copper surface.
The audio features the
Ion release requires direct contact between bare copper metal and water. Any physical barrier between the metal and the water reduces or eliminates the oligodynamic effect. This is the one maintenance step the method requires, and it is simple. Before first use, clean the copper coil or vessel with a paste of table salt and white vinegar. 2 tablespoons of salt stirred into 1/4 cup of vinegar, applied to the copper surface with a cloth and rubbed in circular motions for 60 seconds. The acetic acid in the vinegar dissolves copper oxide and surface patina. The salt acts as a mild mechanical abrasive. Rinse under running water for 30 seconds. The copper should be bright and visually shiny after cleaning, not orange tinted with patina, not greenish with oxidation, not dull with scale. Bright copper. That shine is bare metal. That bare metal is active surface. When you see the shine, the surface is working. Fill your storage vessel with source water. Submerge the copper coil completely, making sure the entire coil surface is in contact with water rather than trapped against the vessel wall. If using a copper vessel, simply fill it. Seal or loosely cover the opening to prevent recontamination from airborne particles and insects. Do not seal it airtight. The slight gas exchange that occurs through a loosely fitted cover does not affect the chemistry, but prevents pressure buildup in warm environments. Set the vessel in a location where it will not be disturbed. Room temperature or slightly above accelerates copper ion release modestly. A vessel kept at 25 to 30 degrees Celsius performs slightly faster than one kept at 15 degrees. If you are in a cold climate, keep the vessel indoors at room temperature. The chemistry operates at all temperatures above freezing. It simply reaches effective concentration faster when warmer. Leave it for 16 hours minimum. This is not a conservative estimate. It is the time documented by the IIT Gandhinagar study and corroborated by independent studies in Nepal, India, and Ethiopia as the threshold for complete indicator bacteria elimination in clear water. 12 hours shows significant but incomplete reduction in multiple studies. 16 hours shows complete elimination in the same studies. Do not shorten the contact time. The ion concentration needs time to build and maintain the exposure threshold, lethal to the full pathogen population. After 16 hours, pour the treated water gently into a clean drinking vessel, leaving the copper coil in the storage vessel. Do not pour so forcefully that you stir up any settled material from the bottom of the container. The copper ions that are now distributed through the water column will continue their antimicrobial work in your drinking vessel until consumed. Refill the storage vessel immediately with fresh source water. The coil is already clean and active. The next batch begins the moment you refill. This is a continuous cycle. 1 vessel, 1 coil, a 16-hour rotation. Every morning you pour yesterday evening's batch. Every evening you pour yesterday morning's batch. The copper never rests, never exhausts, never needs replacement, never runs out of active surface as long as you maintain the cleaning protocol. Clean the copper surface once per week using the salt and vinegar paste. The entire process takes 2 minutes. Rub, rinse, observe the shine, return the coil to the vessel. That is your entire maintenance schedule. 2 minutes per week for a system that operates continuously with no other inputs. Confirm function with 1 test requiring no equipment. After the first successful 16-hour batch, smell the output before drinking. Water treated by the oligodynamic effect has a faintly clean, minerally neutral odor. What water should smell like, with none of the biological or organic notes that contaminated source water carries. If your source water had a faint smell of algae, organic matter, or biological activity, and the output does not, the copper is working. If the coil surface was shiny before loading and the output water is visually clear and odorless after 16 hours, the method is performing as documented. No test strips, no laboratory. Your nose and your eye and a clock are sufficient. 1 person. 3 liters of drinking and cooking water per day. 1 2-liter vessel cycling on a 16-hour rotation produces approximately 3 liters every 24 hours. 2 fills, 2 cycles, 3 liters output. The math closes exactly. Annual operating cost for 1 person's full pathogen disinfection via copper vessel, $2 for the coil, purchased once, lasting indefinitely. Cleaning supplies, a tablespoon of vinegar and a teaspoon of salt per week, available in any kitchen at negligible cost. The entire year's water disinfection infrastructure for 1 person costs $2 at purchase and under 50 cents in annual cleaning supplies. A family of 4 needs 12 liters per day, 4 vessels, each cycling on a staggered 16-hour schedule, 1 filled every 4 hours, produce 12 liters daily in continuous rotation. Total copper cost, $8 for $2 coils. Purchased once. The family's complete daily water disinfection for every subsequent year costs $2 in vinegar and salt for cleaning supplies. $2 per year for a family of 4. Scale to 40 households. 160 people consuming 480 liters per day. 80 vessels in continuous staggered rotation, filling and cycling in 4 groups of 20 on a 6-hour offset. Each group of 20 vessels produces 120 liters per 16-hour cycle. 4 groups produce 480 liters every 24 hours, continuously. The copper investment, $160 for 80 $2 coils purchased once. Annual maintenance, approximately $8 in vinegar and salt for weekly cleaning across the entire system, 160 people, $8 per year for complete pathogen disinfection of the entire community's water supply, using nothing but copper, clean vessels, and a 16-hour cycle that requires no monitoring, no power, no chemistry, and no replacement of any component. The copper does not wear out. The vessels do not expire. The mechanism does not degrade. The system runs until the vessels break, and when a vessel breaks, you replace it for $2. No bills, no infrastructure, no asking anyone's permission. The copper vessel method has specific limits, and they are important to understand precisely. The oligodynamic effect targets bacteria and some fungal contaminants with high reliability at the documented contact time. Its effect on viruses is less consistent. Some studies show meaningful reduction of enteric viruses through indirect mechanisms, including pH shifts and reactive oxygen species generated by copper ion chemistry, but the evidence for viral kill is not as robust as for bacterial elimination, and should not be relied upon as the sole defense in environments with high viral contamination risk. In regions with documented viral gastroenteritis outbreaks from water sources, add the SODIS solar disinfection step or the calcium hypochlorite stock solution treatment after the copper contact period. The copper handles the bacteria, and the subsequent step handles the viruses. The method does not remove dissolved chemical contamination, heavy metals, turbidity, or agricultural runoff. For visibly turbid water, the alum coagulation step should precede the copper contact period. Turbidity reduces oligodynamic efficacy by the same mechanism that fouling reduces it, shielding bacteria inside suspended particles from copper ion exposure. The copper vessel is one tool in a layered system. It is the most ancient tool in the kit, the one that requires no chemistry, no light, no electricity, and no consumables. It is the night shift. While you sleep, it works. Know what it handles in the dark. Know what it leaves for the daylight steps. Those copper vessels are still coming out of the ground at Indus Valley excavation sites in the Sindh and Punjab regions, Mohenjo-Daro, Harappa, Dholavira, shaped for water storage, sealed with organic stoppers, carrying the chemical signature of their use in the copper patina on their interior walls. They are in museum cases in Karachi and Ahmedabad and New Delhi, and they are 3,000 years old, and the chemistry that made them function is the same chemistry that makes the $2 coil in the hardware store plumbing aisle function tonight when you submerge it in your storage vessel and walk away. The IIT Gandhinagar team that published their findings in 2012 were not discovering something new. They were measuring something ancient with modern instruments and reporting numbers that the Indus Valley water workers already knew in the way that practitioners know things, through 10 generations of observation, through the empirical certainty of a method that had never once failed the people who used it correctly. The Indus Valley vessel did this. The Ayurvedic copper lota did this. Alexander's campaign storage did this. Yours will too. The chemistry was always there, in an element, in the electrochemical dissolution of copper atoms into water at a rate measured in atoms per hour, building to a concentration measured in parts per billion, achieving at that almost inconceivably small concentration the complete destruction of every bacterial pathogen in the water column by the time the sun rises again. I don't know what brought you here. It doesn't matter. It works either way.